Awesome. Hello. Good morning or afternoon or evening. I saw in the chat. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. It is Tuesday, July 1st, and submissions were closed last night. So congratulations to everyone on submitting your hackathon projects. Super exciting. A little stressful there. We did crash the submission site, all of you, with all the submissions. So yeah, that was a little stressful, but we got through it. And yeah, just we want to celebrate you guys. You know, this was an amazing couple of weeks. Really appreciate you coming along for the ride and really seeing everyone's projects. I mean, super amazing to see what everyone was sharing, and you know, everyone's been sharing their journeys and their projects, and we're just so grateful. Now we're in this next phase of the hackathon. We're now in the judging period. So you've submitted your projects. Now you're like, what do I do? If you're like me and when you're anxious, you need to like do something. So we want to make sure to give you the tools and you know, give you a space to continue to, you know, work on your project. Unfortunately, the submissions are locked, but you can still, you know, build your community, gain customers, start thinking about kind of the next phase of your project. So we're going to be bringing you some live streams that help you do that. Today we have Dev. We have Ben on from Dev. Hi, Ben.
Hey.
Ben is the co-founder and CTO of Dev, and we'll be talking a little bit about what Dev is in a moment. My name's Kate. I'm on the Bolt team. Alex is with me. He's the chief of staff on the Bolt team. We are going to be doing this live stream for the next hour. If you're new to the live streams, these will be recorded. Also, be sure to throw your questions in the chat. We will be answering questions live and throughout the session. Yeah, and let's get to it.
Awesome. Yeah, the other thing I will say is the chat's usually the most active on YouTube. So I see a couple of you on X chatting, but there's even more people on YouTube chatting. So if you want to pop over into the YouTube chat, we can get you that link. So yeah, as Kate said, the hackathon has come to an end. So it was wild to see all the submissions coming in to the point that, yeah, we did have a little bit of a server crash, but no worries. We got everybody's submission in nonetheless. Appreciate all the energy. And yeah, kind of what we were thinking about is, okay, when we were planning the hackathon, we're like, well, what do you do after you build something? The next step is you should probably go talk about it. And today we're going to kind of get into with Ben, why should you go talk about it? How should you go talk about it? Where should you go talk about it? You know, kind of from here on out, the live stream focus is going to shift to questions like this, like you built something cool. Now what? You know, building, especially if you're interested in building, you know, a business around your project, completing the you know, minimum viable product and getting it out there is a great start. It's the most important start. You know, that's kind of the hurdle that most people never get over. So congrats to you for making it over that hurdle. The next step, you know, but it's not the last step. You know, there's a lot of there's infinite steps, in fact, that continue on after that down the journey. And so yeah, we want to help keep that momentum going for you. So with all that being said, for those of you that aren't familiar, Ben, could you give the audience here a bit of an intro to what is Dev, and how you had the idea for creating this community?
Yeah, so Dev is a specialized social and professional network for software developers. It's designed to complement the other spaces that you're going to be in. So, you know, X and Discord and everything like that. You know, a lot of what we do on Dev is promote, you know, full blog posts that you can share and really dive into the full context of what you're building, and showing them off in the, you know, the broader software community, the broader tech community, etc. So, you know, going way back to the start of Dev, which was about a decade ago now, we've been just kind of plodding along ever since. It really was about creating a dedicated space for folks who were really, really looking to find community and looking to promote themselves and what they were doing in the software ecosystem. So, 10 years ago, so much of that was about just the broadening explosion of the ecosystem. So many more people developing software and needing, more dedicated space to connect with other software developers outside of their bubbles. And, these days, that need is kind of even bigger. So many folks getting into the space of building with tools like Bolt, with, just new ways to develop software. In some ways, the sort of easy part is kind of getting yourself into the building phase. But some of the hard part is, networking, finding collaborators, finding early users, finding just community broadly. So we try to create the most effective kind of full service space for folks to just sort of like put themselves out there and be a part of this ecosystem.
That's cool. So, you mentioned 10 years ago. So 2015, yeah, that was a great time. I remember to be in the Bay, and a lot of cool companies being started and a lot of people learning how to code, going to coding boot camps. I mean, it really was, at the time, it felt like a big explosion in the amount of software being created and people working on creating software. Now we fast forward to 2025. How do you feel about the number of people creating software now?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny you mentioned, being in the Bay. I think so much of our thesis at the time, and still kind of, remains truer than ever, was that folks all over the world are building software. And, depending on where you are, you don't necessarily have access to that kind of like seamless, intuitive way to find community. You sort of have to seek it out, and we need to provide spaces and tools to kind of fall into your little niche within the software ecosystem. So, just kind of going way back to even the start of this thing, we focus so much on making, distributing our website through a globally distributed CDN, which, just means that like if you access our site in, India or Japan, it's pretty much going to be just as fast as if you're, in the Bay Area, which is, the smallest thing, but also kind of the biggest thing. So, and 10 years ago, that was kind of cutting edge stuff. And these days it still, requires building with intent, but it's, the tools to make decisions like that, are so much more readily accessible. And it's those kind of like little things which are not necessarily part of your first version of your project, but can kind of be like thoughtful parts of how you, build out the infrastructure of actually serving, your community wherever that is. So like just being intentional about finding, folks all over the world who are not going to have such a readily accessible community, and making decisions around that has really been our ethos from the start.
So you mentioned that, the original thesis was there's people building software everywhere. You want to give them a place to find each other, get to know each other, maybe collaborate. Building a social network site, a community, is kind of a very tough problem. I think a lot tougher than a lot of other types of businesses that you could start, given that, you're launching the community, but without the community, there is no community to launch.
Yeah.
So there's no community to join. So you're really looking for, to get the ball rolling on
Yeah.
a really complex social process. I imagine that was pretty interesting. Any lessons you learned from that process, and would you recommend that somebody else go out and start a social network or community site in 2025?
Well, I think it's always important to understand that community is going to be a part of any project, any product you make. Even if you're making furniture these days, there's probably a community dynamic, unless you're looking to build the most generic thing ever, which most people aren't, if there's anything unique to what you do, there's probably a community component to it. And actually building community as the core product, I would say that, like, beware of how hard that product is, but realize how much that is a component of everything. And I'll just kind of speak to certain principles that we've used kind of from the beginning, just to kind of solve for some of that chicken egg problem. And then also just kind of lessons which I think apply to pretty much everyone. And so a big thing that we do is that we try to provide single user, like, player one utility with everything we do. So if you are Facebook or Instagram, you have this like established flywheel that is so powerful that is the product. That's great. It's probably you've got like a lot of leverage to play with and everything like that. But if you're kind of anyone else, you really have to be able to provide value to that first user when they're using the product. You can't just say, oh, this will become valuable once everyone else joins. That is a vicious cycle that is so hard to overcome. And not only at the start, but kind of at every step. So even like just new little parts of the product, if they rely on everybody adopting them right away, like, you're really going to have a hard time. So single user utility, just like think about, how is one person going to come to the site, and even if they're the first person to use a certain product, how are they going to find utility there? So much of what we do is just provide a really good content composition experience. You can post on our site, distribute it to Discord or your Slack community, your Twitter, like your Telegram, anywhere you are and you have like any sense of community. We sort of try to provide a form factor which makes it valuable to post on our site and distribute it. But then also the cherry on top is that there's a huge existing ecosystem on our site, so you're going to get distribution if it comes to that. So a lot of folks find value in just writing about their thing, creating a nice rich blog post, and then just sharing it with their friends and like, hey, this is a destination to kind of understand what I'm building, and I got the tools to show it off. But then also, I think, we might talk about this a little later, but we've had folks kind of just post on our site and they catch on within the ecosystem of our site, and they get, 100, 2,000 just full page reads, like 200,000 people like fully kind of digesting, adopting the thing, kind of all at once. And that's the rare side, even within our ecosystem, going viral is, just like, it's a numbers game. It doesn't happen all the time, but there's value even just creating that post and distributing it to the network and kind of latching on. All right, this is a place to sort of follow along and kind of understand, what it is we're building and what's behind it.
You said something a second ago that just kind of hit me as like, wait a minute, let's double click on this. So you're talking about the dynamics of how, you need to create value immediately just by sharing. There's value, even if, you don't necessarily go super viral on your, first shot, etc. Okay. But backing up to what you said a second ago, anything that you're working on has a community aspect, unless you're just making like a generic, like mass distributed good, like toilet paper probably doesn't have like the most community. There's consumer preferences, but I'm sure people are talking about it, somewhere on the internet, but I don't know if that's a major like community driven product. But so can you unpack that actually? Because I think that's a really great point. And when I heard it, I'm like, well, yeah, of course, I naturally, but what is it that really necessitates, or why does community go along with creating some type of value in the world? Why are those two things so interrelated?
Yeah, I mean, I think people form identity around the things they use and the things they kind of want to use. And I think there's folks who find value in being an early adopter to things, and then there's other people who they self-identify as like, hey, I'm kind of like late to the game, I'll catch up eventually, you know, like those are feelings of, you know, consumption habits, but they're also like feelings of personal identity. And you probably, you know, different people know people in their lives, like there's circles where, you know, they're going to be so excited to kind of, you know, try new things. And once they find out about new things, they're going to want to understand who else is using this. You know, I just saw the movie F1 on Friday, and it was one of those movies where I'm telling people like, hey, like, watch this movie in IMAX. It's totally worth it, even if you don't watch other movies. Like, this one is one to kind of, you know, if you're not keeping up with movies, like maybe try F1, because like it's gonna not feel like the 3 hours. It's a real ride, and see it in theaters. And that's a community aspect. So, you know, like that movie's success is going to rely on, one, the built-in community of, you know, F1, the fan base, and that, but then also people like me who, you know, I'm very much willing to see, you know, a really fun movie, and I'm not actively a fan of that, you know, community, but now I sort of like, I've dribbled into it and I'm spreading it. And I haven't like explicitly joined a community, but I've kind of become part of the community in a small way. And I think that you know, if that movie makes $500 million, it's going to be because of that community dynamic, on top of, you know, just the product itself, which is just a movie, you know, the community is really what makes things take off. And we make community, you know, in our personal lives, but, you know, so much of, you know, of our lives is online community, and it manifests in different ways. Like, your community is not just your X feed. It's really your sort of holistic existence, and the shared, you know, people and opinions you find, you know, on the internet.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's so funny. It's so wild that we're doing this as we run a live stream with our community, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's so true, especially for a tool like Bolt. Like, literally, as you were talking in chat, Perspective's like, I think he's maybe talking about me. And I was about to say, like, yes, like the community behind Bolt is a massive part of why we are at where we're at today, right? We've got, I mean, honestly, going back, if you go all the way back to like 2017, 2018, Chris the Tiger, who some of you may have met recently in the Discord, has really been like the champion of our community, going all the way back to when we were a Dev.to company, you know, called StackBlitz, you know, basically VS Code in the browser. And now, you know, Chris has been joined by, you know, so many other people, Tyler, you know, just some of the ones that come to mind, you know, from the hackathon itself, Ashy, Perspective, Inko, Druval. I mean, I'm going to miss a lot, because we have actually, the community has grown so large that it's gotten beyond my ability to even keep track of it. But you know, Gabe, Mauricio, there's this long list of folks who have been critical to like providing feedback. Like, if to like take it tactical for a second, since we just like are going through the process, right? Like, without, you know, the community, we're from the community, we're getting like very tactical feedback, because they're out there interacting with more. I have to run live streams and like do finances and like review feature ideas and write marketing copy and, you know, run all hands calls and stuff like that. So I interact with less users of the product than some of our community members do every day, right?
Sure.
And so it's like this massive like feedback collection process that we wouldn't be able to do without these community members and power users. Then, of course, there's like the distribution and word of mouth aspects. There's the mentoring and coaching aspects, right? Because we also don't have time to one-on-one provide advice and guidance to every new user of the product. So our community helped welcome new members into the community, making them, both like feel welcomed and like less intimidated, but also like practically knowing lots of tips and tricks and, oh, you should watch this video or read this doc. And so, I mean, I'm sure I'm missing some of the things, but it's not hard as the company that's growing in large part thanks to our community to see like how much this matters especially when you're launching something innovative.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, I just had to double click on that, but back.
No, yeah.
So let's see. We were talking about the kind of the launching experience and some of the lessons you learned, I think. So you talked about ensuring like the global distribution aspect, which the global CDN thing was probably, a bit more innovative back when you first integrated it, and then making sure that pieces of the product get value even without the community. But yeah, I wasn't sure where you were going next, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just like to sort of sum it all up. I really think it is about, understanding people in their busy lives, giving them an opportunity to find value, immediately, and don't expect people to just kind of like wait around for this to get useful in that community dynamic, because, like the right version of what you want in a community is probably not just kind of like telling people, oh, this thing has value as community. It's really showing them, it's understanding that they're gonna be busy and distracted, and they're gonna stumble upon your thing and kind of give it a try, and then they have to sort of get it before they can kind of like get into the community. People don't just kind of um, immediately sort of understand, all right, here's this thing, I'm so excited about it, like who else is talking about it. Like they're going to sort of find it through a community, and then they're going to maybe know it that way, or they're going to find this thing and have to find value in it, and kind of establish, sort of their own idea of what community means for that thing. So, I think it's critical for everything we do. But I think, as a founder of a community thing at its core, just so familiar with how complicated and nuanced it is to, capture community and find people at the right moment in their day, and just like understand that it's people all over the world and different contexts, different cultures, etc., and kind of like, cutting through that, and just at the end of the day having a sense of community, and then allowing a lot of organic stuff to happen.
Yeah. From the chat, we've got some comments and thoughts. Community equals real people engaging. I think that's a good point. Like authenticity is something that we try to lean into, and I think that's just something where everybody's looking for some authentic connection and discussion. So certainly, I think an important aspect. Let's see. I saw someone roasting me. Thought I saved that, but maybe I didn't. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah. So it's there. It's authentic. But maybe I need to. Maybe that's a really good note there, though. I'm gonna write that down. See if I can reduce the frequency in future live streams.
I'm looking at I'm looking at the comments right now. I see one that's asking if I'm in a sauna, which is the same thing that Kate asked me when I first joined the call, and the answer is I'm not in a sauna, but I'm in a co-working space that is it's a former Etsy office, and I think it's all a lot of like really fun little rooms like this. So it's all wood paneling, but heat's room temperature. If I'm sweating, it's because I'm nervous. I'm not in a sauna, but happy to be joining from where I am in the world.
It's a sauna. That's awesome. Let's see here. We've got a lot of hackathon related comments that we'll get to. But I think that would be a good lead into, okay, we've kind of talked a little bit about importance of community, the value of community, how to start forming a community. And probably this is a good time for us to unveil a little bit of announcement
Yeah.
that Ben has for us around something that you can do next to kind of take that first step into building some community around what you created for the hackathon.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about community and the sort of importance of taking those next steps, not kind of just assuming that sort of product itself just like is the community and taking part and stuff. So everything we do is about helping people kind of connect and giving them the tools to put themselves out there and get rewarded for what they're creating, both in terms of engagement and also just like kudos and attention within our ecosystem. So, Kate, if you want to sort of jump me over to the screen sharing, I'd love to just kind of get into things. So one thing you'll see is that we're broadcasting on Dev right now, and it's probably a second behind. So I'm going to click out of that because it's a little trippy. But here I am on the homepage of Dev. So Dev.to is our website. And encourage everyone watching to sort of click over and see what we have going on there. And as you can see, it's an ecosystem, all about software, and everything is people posting, sometime, some big companies posting, lots of just like individual developers and their career, startup founders, there's something for everybody, as long as it's, tech enthusiasts, engaging. And this first post we have here is a challenge that we have. So we do these call outs to the community, anybody who's building. We do these partnerships, mini hackathons sometimes it's a writing challenge. And here we have a writing challenge connected to the world's largest hackathon. And it's really an opportunity to just share what you've built. And so we call it a writing challenge, but you write as much or as little as you want, just sort of show off what you've done, what the idea is, why people are going to find it valuable. And of course, since we're a community of technologists, any technical details, whether that's, the code you want to share or just like your approach to building with Bolt or anything in between, we encourage you to just, click on a dev, find this post and get started. And it's running through the end of the month. So you'll have a lot of time after, the submission deadline of Bolt, which of the hackathon, which just happened. You've got about a month to get your post in on Dev, and we really, encourage people to just get going on that, sign up for your account right away and just kind of like start engaging with the community. And then we, sort of don't encourage perfection with making your posts, just be a part of this challenge. And it's an opportunity to sort of like help distribute your product to people who might be interested, but also, get kudos on our platform. And what I mean by that is that we have these sort of unique and special badges, which you get for just submitting. You get a badge on Dev, and the winners also get a special badge that nobody else gets. And these badges are actually really important within our ecosystem because folks visiting profiles can see what badges people have gotten, and they act as a certain sort of certification for like, I have skills with Bolt, I know what I'm doing, I've built this thing, or maybe I've even won the challenge. And it's just part of our ecosystem. I'm going to click over to my account, and you'll see like I've got a bunch of badges I've gotten. Obviously as as the founder of the platform, I've had plenty of opportunity along the years to win some badges. But really, it is kind of this like unique and kind of rare thing. Like we don't just give badges out willy-nilly. You've got to sort of accomplish something within the ecosystem. But as participants in this challenge, it's a really good way to just kind of dive in and get started in our ecosystem, building community, building professional contacts, and potentially, finding users for, whatever it is you build. And we have, a few examples of folks, building in the open on our platform, but also, who have found, large audiences and kind of launched a whole company, on top of what they've built. So yeah, check out the post. The call to action is just get involved in this challenge and submit something. But there's, so much more there, including just keeping up with everybody else who's submitting and things like that, and just kind of finding out where the community is.
Is it free, Ben?
Yeah, it's absolutely free. Everything we do is free. We have, we both have free stuff like all the time, but also even opportunities to get things for free that wouldn't otherwise be free. So like free opportunities for some discounts on services and access to other free things. So like everything is free, and even things that you don't think are free within our ecosystem. It's really inclusive and meant for everyone.
Awesome. So thinking about this right from our perspective, and so if you're thinking about entering this challenge, right? I mean, just go write up your experience, share your story. That's valuable regardless. But an interesting angle to think about is put yourself in our shoes, right? We're like, wow, all of these incredible people just participated in this hackathon, built all this cool stuff. And of course, there is going to be, 40 to 50 ultimate winners that, win a cash prize and etc. But there's so many more interesting projects and interesting people and interesting stories that sitting here right now, I do not know about. Like so many people participated in this hackathon from all around the world for so many different reasons, built so many different types of things. And so if you kind of think about this, we're telling you about this opportunity to start building your community. It's also a part of an opportunity for you to kind of become a part of the broader Bolt community that we're trying to build. And we want more people to see and hear about your interesting stories and work so that they can come be a part of the community. So anyways, what I'm leading up to here is that one reason, if you're not just intrinsically motivated enough by telling your own story and getting it out there, is we are obviously super excited to read these stories and highlight these stories on our own channels and help share your story with the broader Bolt community, as well as just learn about them ourselves. So yeah, we're really excited about this challenge, and really hope that you will share your hackathon experience with us. Looking through some of the chats, right, I can tell that people have interesting stories that I would love to hear about. Baki says hackathon was amazing. Would love to hear more about that journey. What made it amazing? What did you build, etc. Abdullahad says the hackathon journey was one I'll never forget. It's a story worth telling to my children in the future, but maybe also to us today via the Dev writing challenge. And another comment from Baki, will there be a stream where we can examine the projects together from the hackathon? I think we will likely be doing some of those streams with the judges as we start to go through and review the submissions, but we're not going to be able to get through all of them. Whereas, this Dev community writing challenge is going to be a great opportunity to get in there and see some of the stories of what other people built that we may not get to on a live stream.
Yeah, and I'll just note that, for anyone listening, just to like really understand, what this is and what Dev is and stuff. Again, like we call this a writing challenge to distinguish from like some of our building challenges, because the building's already happened. That was kind of its own thing. This is almost a lower barrier. It's just make a post, and that's the challenge, but make it, interesting and just share the journey. And as we talked about earlier, just like, it's not about your writing prowess. It's about your authenticity. It's about just like why do you care about the problem, and why are you excited about the solution? But I'm also going to say that within our posts, and you can embed videos, embed embed projects in different ways, and so like you talked about how the live stream, we can only have so many folks on live streams, but these posts are a way to sort of like in really any media, any format you want, create demos of your projects. And then, we allow you to sort of like embed YouTube videos, and Dev is such a great way to, if you want to think of like the sort of mechanics of going viral, a lot of folks will, create a video, embed it on Dev. That helps sort of create a little bit of momentum for that video. But then obviously the video exists on YouTube, it kind of starts getting momentum there, and you can kind of, catch on. So, so much about the broader sort of ecosystem is just about, catching a little bit of a spark. And we really treat Dev like that opportunity to, it's inclusive, anyone can kind of post. You can use unique tags which sort of connect more deeply with folks most interested in that small domain of the technical ecosystem. But then if it is a YouTube video, if it is something that kind of has its own sort of other ecosystem, you can treat it as sort of like a head start to get going there. So you don't need to embed a video. You don't really kind of need to format to any specific way of doing this, but the opportunities to sort of tell the story in any way are really there.
And I do know that a lot of folks listening have a video that they recently made, since that was a required aspect of the hackathon submission. So you've already got something to start with. You also, if you wanted, you could expand upon that video, tell more of the surrounding story, etc. Put that as part of your post. I know I'd love to see those. We'd probably do some compilation edits too, if we get a bunch of those videos up there, and boost some of that content on our channels as well. Especially with, I'm sure I've seen a couple clips on Twitter of people's videos, and I don't know if they were work in progress or done, but I definitely think there's probably some VO3 usage going on here. So probably some pretty shockingly high quality AI generated videos for some of these submissions that I would definitely like to get a closer look at. So let's see. Yeah, I guess anything else that we need to tell the live chat about the challenge here?
Well, I think if we think of anything like really specific to that challenge, I think we should circle back on it. But if we want to kind of dive into just kind of some like demos of stuff that's happened on Dev, I think that would be like kind of a little interesting spark.
Yeah, I forgot we had some ideas. Yeah, let's see how other people have utilized the platform in the past.
Yeah, so again, so much of the platform is just like finding community. It's not always just about like showing off what you built. You can kind of just express really any feelings or anything you want. But I think specific to this audience, so much of this is like capturing community with folks who are like that little bit of extra curious with what you built. And I want to jump to this post from originally from 2019. And if you see here, the slug of this URL says, I created Postwoman, an online open source API request builder, which was just like a kind of silly play on Postman. So like just the what I imagine, sort of a quick project. I'm going to make it open source, and I'm just going to sort of show it off. But this post got I think between 150 and 200,000 people reading the post, and reading a post on Dev is a much bigger engagement than an impression you get on X or something. Just like that number, you could maybe get 150,000 impressions in a feed that is not the same as 150,000 people sort of like reading and consuming a story. So anyway, later renamed to Hopscotch. This is a an open source alternative to Postman, and it caught on. You can kind of see like so many people into this project. They wound up raising, I think, a reasonably substantial amount of capital to sort of back this as a commercial open source project. And it is, still kind of alive and doing great. This team is based in India. I've spoken to them like one time on a quick call because, it just like, I thought this was so interesting, but I have not been, I'm not like the audience and the community that they built is so massive. It's kind of like, just kind of transcended everything they did on Dev. But it really did all start here. And this is just like one that really comes to mind because like I really caught onto it. I love open source projects. I think like you don't have to think that if it's open source, it's just kind of like, can't be a whole company. It can't be, and in fact, it's one of the best ways to do things is putting the code out there, building community, finding folks. So like launching open source projects on Dev is one of the most interesting things you can do because you're finding community and then you're sort of, those people might become builders and you're sort of just blossoming from there. And so, this one comes to mind when we were talking, before the show. I really felt like showing this one off. And then this is another project. Anthony here is just constantly sharing what's new with the project. They have they've created an organization account on Dev, so you can create a user account, but you can also post on behalf of your organization. So this is Anthony posting for hmpl.js, which is a template library, and they're consistently posting updates. So you can see like, they're talking about their launches on GitHub, getting to 100 stars, launching on Product Hunt, like new versions, new things, just like what they're doing, how they replace certain things, calling out new launches and stuff. So this is like, we're talking about the writing challenge, which is one very good templated, instructive way to get going. But, folks out there are smart. They're going to make use of just kind of like re-engaging with the community, live blogging in the ecosystem, and constantly sharing with the, with the broader network. And we allow folks to cross-post from blogs if they want to kind of, if they want their content to mainly live on like a blog that they're creating, but then cross-post to Dev. Like we sort of try and just be part of the ecosystem in that way. So, but yeah, this is a project that's more like kind of happening now. I think is like blossoming on Dev, but not just through like one post that's gone viral, but through the, the consistency of sharing every new things that are going on. So a minute ago, I just scrolled down and I said, hey, this post was for 100 GitHub stars. And now I see, on June 19th, it's now 500 GitHub stars. So it's, just kind of like little by little, finding people on Dev. There's a lot of inherent enthusiasm for people building. And, when you're part of this community, there's a certain kind of like co-authenticity just by like, hey, not only did I find you on the internet, I found you on Dev where I am, like this kind of smaller version of the overall community. And I thought that these are sort of like two really complementary examples. We have the one that just like went ultra viral right away, and then the one that's like consistently been like a drip of just like, I'm going to update with everything and I'm going to kind of build a following. So the kind of dynamic there, I just kind of like, I'm excited to see when these things happen. And, I think there's a lot of people listening who are going to be really great candidates to participate in our community in these ways.
100%. Let's see. We got a question here from Lawrence Decodes. How much time resources did you invest in defining who these communities members are or should be? I think that's a callback to when we were talking about the Bolt community, and the answer is none. They defined that for us. Basically, the community just showed up and started being helpful, started helping each other out, started welcoming new people in, and we met them organically as they arrived and self-selected as being pillars of the community. That's kind of the cool thing about sharing the journey in public and having people be able to come along for the ride, is it is this very organic process where it isn't really about picking and choosing. It's just who kind of ends up vibing, hanging out, and helping others be successful. At least in our community, that's like a big defining factor of kind of what makes someone stand out in the community to others, how helpful they are. Let's see. Gonna hit a few more topics from the chat here. We've got a question here from StorySphere, and I know Perspective had asked the same thing earlier. Have we actually gotten the final tally yet, Kate, or are we still working on that?
We're still working on it, but we are over 10,000 submissions.
We got a question here at the beginning of the stream. This was already answered in chat. Can we continue working on our projects after it's submitted? Well, not if you no is the first answer. If all you hear is no, that's good enough. So I just want to be very clear about that first. The answer is no. Then Gabriella asks, are we allowed space? Similar question, but about back end. The answer is also no. So I'm going to stick to that. Now I'm going to say, but you can make a copy of the project that you submitted. Make sure, like it's in the menu of Bolt. At the top of the screen, there's a little 3 dots. You can click them and you can click duplicate. And then make sure that the URL of the new project is different than the one that you submitted for the contest. Make sure that you, just double check that. I don't want anybody getting disqualified. But yeah, then once you make a copy, that's a different project and you can do whatever you want with it. So you can keep working on what you're building and posting about it and work that into your story, Ben.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna say, like, as you submit to Dev, I think you should do so with authenticity of kind of like, what was step one of like, what did I build for this hackathon? And then like, what have I done since then? Like, what did I kind of not realize the minute after I submitted it? And what have I done since? So, I'm such a believer on the like iteration and evolution of software. I think that's, really, how you get feedback and make things right. So obviously I think it makes sense for the rules of this hackathon, there has to be a cutoff date. It's just happened. That's awesome. But as you submit for the writing challenge and you want to provide extra context, you want to kind of continue the journey just up to the end. The sort of rules are inherently a little bit more fluid. So don't pretend that you submitted this thing that you didn't. But as you write about it and as you talk about kind of like, what did I not realize until after I submitted it, or what bugs did I find, or what like natural evolution did this software go through, like just kind of off the top of my head, like I think, absolutely encourage describing that journey in your challenge if it kind of so happens organically that way. So, as you submit to Dev, I think, absolutely just tell the holistic story as it is when you submit your post.
Yep, 100%. Let's see here. I think I wouldn't be too worried about that perspective. Okay, let's see. Where should we go next here? I guess we're coming up on time. yeah, anything else you wanted to share with people ahead of this challenge?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think just pay attention for communications you're going to get from Bolt on the world's largest hackathon, about this challenge. They're going to be sending emails about it. So just like, if anything is confusing that you're following along here, just kind of pay attention to mailings, and just reminder that you've got a month to submit this, and you're going to get a few more kind of reminders and touch points about it. And that this is, I think, like, the sharing step in this way is going to be one of the coolest parts of participating in this challenge. I would encourage anybody who didn't get around to submitting their world's largest hackathon submission to still kind of join Dev and kind of be a part of that anyway, because I think it's a natural next step for anybody who thought, to participate in this. And then I'll also just say that we've got some sort of really cool evolutions, I think, going on, within our platform right now. So I really anticipate by the time this contest finishes, we might even have shipped some cool new ways to kind of experience projects out there. And just this is kind of just an experimental work in progress, but we're really thinking about this new way to sort of consume posts on our site that we're thinking of as TikTok for web apps, as just like a new and interesting way to sort of see what's out there, and then just hit next and find out what the next thing is, and kind of discovering interesting things that way. So this is just kind of like a preview for a work in progress thing, but and it shouldn't hold anybody up to wait until that's available or anything like that. But I felt like Bolt is one of the more interesting enabling technologies for what we see as a new way to sort of build and distribute things. So we're going to be building really interesting new things that really complement this new era of capacity to build software without it taking 6 months. And we really feel like we're on day one of this. We're now on the last day of the hackathon just passed, but I think that we are kind of collectively part of day one of a new concept of how software is built. And and we're actively really excited about the evolution of how software is developed, but also the education on how a software career is developed. So I think a lot of folks who partook in this contest, I think they want to sort of, maybe they're starting a startup, or maybe they're just wanting to take part and kind of build their career in different ways. And it's as complicated as it's ever been to kind of get your career going, but the opportunities are absolutely there for folks who are engaged and adopting new and interesting stuff. So that's kind of a bunch of sort of just points I'm hitting on, but I really think just kind of join our ecosystem, keep checking back. We've got some really interesting stuff going on, and just to kind of boil it down to a call to action is to absolutely just submit something to this challenge, and submit it early so that you can kind of get it out there. And then you will be able to sort of edit after you submit it, as long as it's before the deadline. So I would strongly encourage folks to just get their post up and put a deadline on it that's well ahead of the actual deadline, and then start just kind of building community and gaining feedback.
Awesome. This link on screen is where you go to find all the details. We'll also have this in the YouTube video description, which will be up in a few minutes shortly after the stream. And we'll leave you with this comment from Ashley. Congrats to everybody on your hackathon submissions, and look forward to seeing your stories on Dev. Kate, you want to wrap us up here?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think everything Ben said for sure. getting your story out, but also answering questions like that. Like in 2018, like React was a big thing. So like the blogs that we're talking about React, really got that traffic. Now all this technology is relatively new, right? There's a lot of questions out there. People are searching for answers. So I think that's another huge opportunity as well. So yeah, super excited for like this next phase, like Ben was saying. In terms of the Bolt side of things, yeah, we have we're catching our breath a little bit from yesterday, but then we have some more live streams coming up. Again, kind of helping with like the business side, getting customers, growing community. What do you do with this awesome thing you just built? We're going to be kind of focusing on that, as well as we're going to have a demo day coming up, which isn't even live yet, but it will be coming up late July. So stay tuned for more on that. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we will catch you next time.
Later.